Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of New Vita Let's Talk. Today, we're very grateful to be here with my boy, Mason Dingwall. Mason, thank you for coming out, bro. And I guess you kind of want to give us a background of like who you are and what you do for the people who don't really know you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, first of all, for having me on, guys. I've been looking forward to it for a while since you guys reached out to me. But yeah, I'm a strength coach. I work at Capital Strength Training Systems. Been there now for, I want to say, 5 years, maybe like 4.5, 5 years since 2018. Just work with all sorts of clients from, general pop, so just like the average Joe, to like athletes, varying levels of like amateur up to like pro and stuff like that. But
Let's dive into that. What made you get into strength and conditioning? Like, let's maybe talk about like I think it was maybe you playing sports.
Yes, exactly. So I was always like a big into sports growing up. Like even like in high school, like sports always took precedence over academics for me.
Yeah.
And always wanted to get to the next level, and whether it was hockey or rugby, like always trying to like reach that pinnacle of wherever I could get to. Like many athletes, you obviously don't get to that point, and like you come to a realization that that's not really going to be your life at some point. But there was, getting into phys ed, the phys ed program at Queen's, I kind of like realized that there's another avenue for me to go to, that I can kind of stay in that like world of like athletics and sport, and that was kind of joining into the strength and conditioning program, I guess that was
strength and conditioning.
Strength and conditioning program at Queen's. And just like really started loving that there, and just like being able to train and like work with the athletes that like across all different sports, and kind of gave me a way to still stay like in that world that I like loved and grew up with, but just like in a different light now. Instead of like me being the center of attention, I'm there to try and help all these people reach their goals, and that's something that has made me happy to try to help all those people do that.
Yeah. No, it's dope. And did you have any like injuries or anything like that, like throughout your athletic career?
Yeah. So definitely. So I had when I was in high school, I had several injuries, but the major one that I had like reconstructive like shoulder surgery. So I tore pretty much all of the ligaments and like tore my labrum. So going through that and rehabbing that was like something that was important to me, and like learning how to recover and like do the rehab was something that was big. But I also had several strength coaches that I worked with throughout the years when I was in high school. I had like ones with team trainers whenever I was playing like AAA hockey. We had those experiences, and then also I worked with a personal trainer a little bit on two separate occasions. One when I was like 16, and then one when I was 17. So I had experiences like with strength and conditioning, and like I obviously really enjoyed it. And stuff that I liked and stuff that I didn't like from the coaches, and like some of those experiences are actually stuff that I've pulled information from for today when I'm coaching. Like I think back to stuff that I liked and didn't like from the coaches that I had like back in the day.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of the people that I train now are high school students, whether they're like athletes or hockey players or volleyball players. But yeah, so like I've had like that kind of experience, but I don't think lots of people really work with personal trainers and strength coaches in high school. They don't have like the opportunity to. So that was something that also kind of like got me into it and got the ball rolling kind of early on.
Yeah. And then I know like maybe not a lot of people know this, but like the strength and conditioning program at Queen's, like you had to apply for it, right? It was a process. It was something like you had to be like what, right? Like a resume, or like what did you have to do again?
Yeah, there was, I mean, it's been some years now, but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was like you had to write like a cover letter and a resume.
Yeah.
And I'm not really like a huge writer, but and like I think my resume probably like looked like trash or something.
Yeah.
Like I just put down like like played high level sports, like yada yada. I worked some camp counselor shitty job, but obviously when I sent that in, he obviously wasn't impressed. So I actually got passed over.
But that's what I love though, that story.
Into the internship program. And I was pretty upset about it at the time. Like it was something that I was really interested in doing, and like without that, I was like kind of realizing like fuck, like I'm kind of lost. Like if I don't have this like program to go into that I really wanted to do. So I decided that I would actually just go and talk to the head strength coach personally, just to kind of be like, look, man, like I know like there was something that I didn't like maybe include or something you didn't like in my cover letter or resume, but like if you just give me a chance, like I promise I'll be like one of your best interns. Like I'll work really hard. Like I'm really passionate about this like field and I really want to get into it. And luckily, Colin is his name. He gave me a chance on it, and yeah, like I worked my butt off while I was there, and I really enjoyed it. And like, thankfully to him, like I wouldn't be like where I am today if he didn't like accept me into that program, because I probably would have just.
But like if it wasn't for your drive
walk.
too, right? Like a lot of people, they get declined, and it's just like, okay, like what now? You know what I mean? But I love the fact that I remember even talking to you during those times, and like you just did not take no for an answer. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's so important though when it comes to like building like and following your dreams in your heart, right?
I want to ask that is like saying no to someone, especially like when you want to be where you're at. Like, what, like how'd that feel?
Like when he said
like
said
he
no
didn't
to
want you at first, and you had to kind of like say, "This is me." Like I need to be here.
I was kind of like, honestly, I was kind of mad.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, like I know some of the other people, like not putting anybody else down, but like I was like, I know some of the people that are like have applied, and I was like, I know that I would be like
top candidate,
better than them, or like I don't know if that sounds like bad to say, but like it was more just like I knew that I really wanted to be there, and that like I was gonna have to like prove to him somehow that like to get me in. Like I don't know. He honestly said he told me that nobody had ever came up to him and said that before, so that was part of the reason. And he was like, yeah, he's like, well, I had to do another part still. Like it wasn't even like that wasn't even the acceptance. It was like I had to do another interview after that. So it was like that was the initial step. I got cut before the like initial even first step.
Jordan over here. Eh?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't even get into the interview, and then so he's like, okay, like he's like, I appreciate you coming and like, you know, kind of sticking your neck out and like trying, you know, to convince me. He's like, I'll give you a chance at the interview, yada yada. And so I did well enough in the interview after that he let me into the program.
So like you like doing like your own workouts prior to this, right? Like strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Once you started taking it serious and started like, okay, this might be my career, like explain that switch on like how you approached your workouts or how you created your workouts.
Well, early on, like when I was training, like and even in like when I had those personal trainers, like not the strength coaches that I did with my team training, but the personal trainers, like it was a lot of like bodybuilding like type training. So it was like, okay, like just trying to like get big and stuff like that, which was obviously like was a goal of mine at the time. Like, you know, you're grade 11, grade 10, like scrawny kid.
You're
like,
you're
trying to get huge.
Yeah.
You know? But like the training back then that I did compared to like training now for like an athlete is so different. Like you like back then it was just trying to do hypertrophy training and strength training, like get big. Whereas like now, like I understand that you have to incorporate so many other things. Like you have to, incorporate like power and like plyometric training to like stay explosive. Like, you know, coupled with your hypertrophy and your strength training, then also, you know, incorporating like training for your energy systems depending on what sport you're playing. Like there's so much more to working out as an athlete or training for performance than just like getting big and strong. Yeah. So that's something that I've learned like over the years, obviously, and that I implement now whenever I'm training.
What's a sport that you've found that you've kind of had to dedicate more time into? Just I guess like the science of it, because you have to prepare them better.
When I started working with like what Rico brought up earlier is like when I started training the boxers, it was like it was a realm of like, you know, I had never like boxed before. Like before I was training like hockey players and like you know, whatever, rugby, like soccer athletes at the school or like rugby athletes, that's stuff that I'm comfortable with. But then like when I was training the boxers, I was like, okay, like I gotta step my shit up because like I don't really know this sport extremely well. Like obviously you can deduce things from watching it, and like, you know, you do in some aspect train all athletes the same way, but there are certain parts you have to change like to modify for their sport. So that was a sport that I like had to do some additional research just to make sure that I knew that I was like what I was doing. Especially because when I started training those guys, it was like I wasn't training like amateurs. It was like I was immediately training like a pro.
Oh, damn. Okay.
So, you know, I wanted to do well, and it was actually my first real client, personal training client coming out of school was
A professional boxer.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy though.
Right? And also too, it's like you're preparing this guy to go to war, right? So
Yeah,
it's
like those guys, like they take it so seriously, right? It's not like it's everything that you train an athlete, but almost more so, because it's like they're there by themselves, like they don't have a team to surround them. So it's like they put every ounce of effort like into their body to like making sure it's at its utmost best before they perform. Because if you don't, like you're like to a lesser extent, like your life's on the line. You know, like you're boxing, like you're kind of in there, you know, fighting to the death almost.
Yeah,
like you get knocked out cold if you're not prepared, right? So that was something that I was like stressed training them, and like I made sure to do some like additional research and whatever.
It's probably a tough balance, because I feel like a boxer, like your cardio has to be up, but then your power has to be up.
Yeah.
So like it's like
there's a lot of that too, and like you also like, I mean, it depends on the fighter, right? So it's like if some guy already has really good cardio and that's one of his strengths, then it's okay. We can focus on other things. The big thing about boxing was like working with the boxing coach in tandem to like make sure that they're not like we have to pay attention to like their like the load on their bodies. So it's called load management. So it's like you don't want to overtrain somebody like at certain parts of their camp. So it's like, you know, early on you can do lots of like strength training where they're sore afterwards, they're putting on some muscle, they're getting big, they're getting strong.
And we still have the weight, right? Because before cutting, essentially.
And then
right?
when we get closer to like the fight, you have to make sure that you tailor it down. Like, okay, this is the time where their sparring is really important. They have to feel sharp because it's such a mental thing for them. So it's like, okay, we got to make sure that they're not sore and fatigued going into their sparring sessions. Otherwise, like, they're just gonna like they could get hurt because if they're already like so sore from their training. But B, like if they go in feeling sluggish against an opponent and they don't feel sharp, then it's like a mental thing, right? It's like, okay, like fuck, I'm like I'm not feeling too well. Like fights in 2 weeks, like I didn't feel too good in the sparring. Like, so there's kind of like multiple things you have to like incorporate into training those guys. And
you ended up going to the actual fight, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
That's sick,
man. Like it was some cool experiences.
You enjoy it?
Yeah, I did really enjoy it, but like I was so nervous, man.
Because it's your product. Almost
yeah, just like the first fight, I remember. Like the first fight, I didn't go to it, but I was watching it. Or no, I did go to the first fight. What am I saying? I went to the first fight, and it was over in a casino in Montreal, and I was like sitting up, like it was like a small venue. Like the guy, his name was Devin Tomko. I think he's still boxing right now. I think he's down in California. And it was early on in his career, so I think he'd only had like maybe 5 or 6 fights. Like he was like, you know, 3-1 or like 4-1 or something like that. And he was fighting against a guy that was like way like, you know, the guy that he was fighting was heavily favored over Devin.
Yeah, season like he had his.
He was like an up and coming guy. Like he was good. Like,
do you know where he's from?
What's up?
Do you know where he's from?
I can't remember. I'm assuming I'm pretty sure he was French because we were out in Montreal. Devin Tomko is from, he's from, I want to say Selkirk.
Where's that?
Manitoba.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, so like just south. I'm pretty sure it was Selkirk, and just south of like Winnipeg.
Okay.
And you know, a guy that kind of came from nothing, like whatever. And funny enough, he actually was a guy that he used to weigh. Not while I was training him, but he used to weigh like 300 pounds, and he cut all the way down. Like he was fighting at like
David Goggins.
He was fighting at like 170 or something like
that's
that.
crazy,
What?
bro.
Or like 180.
Could you see the like? I guess his body, did it like take damage from like transferring from like 300 all the way down there?
Yeah, you can tell he had some areas.
Yeah.
So like I mean, you can tell that he's got he was bigger at one point. But anyways, yeah, when I was there, like in the crowd, like my palms were sweating, like my fucking pits were sweating, like my ass cheeks were sweating. Like, dude, I was so nervous watching. Like it felt like I was like about to go fight somebody, but like I was just watching him fight. And the whole thing, the game plan, that's also part of the thing that with the training is like depending on who they're fighting or like what their strengths are, like we might be like put more emphasis on something more than other things. So for him, the guy that he was fighting was like fast, explosive, whatever, and Devin's more of like a grinder, so like he kind of would like he can like absorb a lot of punches, and like his thing, like the plan to victory was to kind of like let the guy kind of almost like punch himself out a little bit early on and then like grind out and like win the later rounds and like have his cardio be the thing that gets him the win. And so pretty much to a T, like that's what happened. Is early on the guy was kind of landing some punches, doing well, and then Devin started to gain some momentum like in the middle rounds, and then like towards the end, like his cardio just like put him over the top of the other guy. So like it was honestly like an ideal scenario. Whether or not it was obviously not like him winning that fight is like, I don't know, 15% me, maybe less. I don't know.
Maybe
it's all
more.
him. It's all him.
Yeah,
though.
but it's like I was gonna ask you that too. Like that relationship, like the strength conditioning coach and the athlete, that's an important relationship. Like he has to trust you, and you have to trust him. Like kind of like I guess like maybe talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, like those guys for sure, you have to gain their trust. Like especially early on, like they didn't really know who I was, right? So, like being able to like get him to buy into what I'm doing is like something that's important with all athletes, not just boxers. But like if the athlete understands like why you're doing something and like what you're doing, like the intent is going to be more like the intent is going to be there for them as athletes, which is like there's a lot of strength coaches that talk about that, but like you want your athlete to understand like why you're doing what you're doing. At least that's the way that I like to do it. Like instead of just saying like, oh, this is my way, like, and this is like we're doing it. I like to explain to my athletes why we're doing stuff so that they kind of feel like involved and understand like the methodology behind what we're doing. Yeah. And I find that produces like better results across, whether it's a personal training client or if it's like a whole team. I find that that's really important, is to get your guys to know like why they're doing what they're doing, so they buy in and they trust.
Having a relationship with your athletes, how big is that for you?
Huge. Like, again, it's the buy-in thing, right? Like if your athletes feel like they care about you, I feel like it's, that relationship is stronger and the buy-in is better, and like they're gonna be more like focused in your training and like understand what's going on. So like I put a lot of emphasis on like athlete and coach relationship, and like I try my best to go, whether it's like go watching fights or watching hockey games or like doing whatever, or just like like if I see that they do something, they post it on Instagram, like I reply and be like, yo, like good job, like whatever. Like I try to like stay like involved in that sense, and I think it is important like with your athletes to do that, to create those relationships, because like with anybody that you train, it's like, yes, you can do like producing results is like arguably like the top most important thing, but at the same time, like your athletes gotta like you, like if they're gonna train, I mean like or like your clients in general, like if they're training with you like 4 times a week and they hate your guts, like they might just go somewhere else even though 100%. They have good results,
And
so
like you have to have like I guess that personality as well, like to be a like people's person and talk to them. You can't just be like a coach and not talk much.
Like some people, exactly, like I mean some people don't care, like maybe there's some athletes that are just like, okay, like, I don't care if this guy's a dick, like whatever, he produces results. But I do think there are some athletes that like it is important to like be like there for them in terms of like listening to their problems, or just being like a friend in times where you can be a friend. You don't want to cross that line too much of like moving away from coach into just being their friend. There is that line that you have to walk, but like it's important for sure.
Let's switch it up now to someone you've trained, McDavid, or at least you've had experience with, right? I think people think that's like super sick. Explain that process. How did that come about?
So I was just an intern, so I wasn't actually like fully training McDavid. We'll set that aside really, right? Okay, I was an intern. But when I was coming off of a 3rd year at Queen's, there was a guy that came by. His name was Lucas, and so he gave us a presentation just kind of talking about what he did at this place down in Toronto, which was called the Gary Roberts High Performance Training. And so they are one of the programs that like trains like a lot of like NHL players, and so obviously like that piqued my interest early, like fairly quickly when I heard he was coming. To the point where I had all these like questions prepared to like try to like get myself to stand out from the group, I was super interested to go down because they took 2 interns every year to do this.
Like just 2 from Queens or 2 from all?
2 from like all over, like
that program, like Gary Robertson program, right?
2 from like all of Canada, North America, like whoever wants to apply.
That's wild.
So they came through and did a presentation, and then afterwards they said, okay, like we have 2 intern positions, like this is the first step to do, like yada yada. And so I immediately got working on it. I can't remember, there were so many steps. There was like 4 steps to the interview process. I think the first one was like create like a workout program like on a template and send it to them. And if that was good, then it was like, okay, now send a video of you training somebody, like training the program that you created, and like talking out all the cues and like explaining the workout. Like you had to be like, be very verbal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I was, it was also like weird, like editing a video. Like I don't even know how to fucking do that. So I was like scrambling, like trying to make this video. But then there was that. I can't even remember. There was something else, and then the final one was like a in-person, like a Skype call, like with the head strength coach that was like bringing us on. And anyways, there was all these steps, and Evan and Colin, like the head coaches at Queens at the time, like helped me along with some of the stuff as well.
Cool.
And so I managed, luckily, to get through to the last step, which was to go down to Toronto and like coach them in person. So coach the 2 head strength coaches
Oh wow!
No way.
Damn,
of the
that's
program
tough.
in person.
It must
So
have been stressful leading up to that.
it was very stressful. So there was me and another guy from Queens that went down together, and then there was I think 2 other applicants, and we drove down. I think it was like, I want to say it was on a Saturday or something like that, and we had to drive down to Toronto from Kingston. And luckily my roommate at the time had a car, so he let me borrow it. And we left at like 7 a.m. We got some coffees, we got some Timmies. We're driving down the road, like we're not paying attention. There's nobody on the road on the highway on Saturday morning at like 7. So we're driving down, we're just chit-chatting. We're on a timeline because we have to get there. I want to say for like, maybe it was like noon or something like that is when we're supposed to go. And on the way down, all I see in my rear view is some sirens. And I'm like, oh crap. And so I look down at the speedometer.
How fast were you going?
Oh shit, I'm going 140 right now. And I didn't even realize my roommate's car doesn't have cruise control. So I was just like, we were talking, there's nobody on the road, like whatever.
Just flying.
So I'm like, fuck, okay. So I get pulled over, on the way down to this thing. It was like, $400 ticket. You're going 40 over. The guy, so my roommate's car that I was driving was like an old BMW.
Yeah. Oh, that's why they.
And they see me wearing like the Queen's jacket. They're like, like we're not taking it easy on this.
Grab him.
This guy,
Get him.
Slap this
Make
guy
him
with
an
the biggest
example.
ticket that we
exactly.
got. So I got that. I was like, fuck, okay, whatever. So we got back on the road, and I was like, I got to put that out of my mind. Like, I got to like not be rattled going into this. Anyways, we got there. We, one at a time, like we're coaching them through this. And I managed to do well enough that they liked me. And I remember them calling me. I was like in the stairwell, like of the Arc at Queens. And I remember them calling me, and he's like, so just we're calling to like say that like, congratulations, like we accepted you in. And I never remember like being so happy in my entire life.
No, I can't imagine.
Did you jump? Did you have a little
jump? Yay!
Little jump, yeah. No, but I remember like I was just like, what the fuck, like as if I actually got this. Like I just remember being so like elated and like excited, and like I was just laughing. I was like, no, I was like, thank you so much. Like you won't regret this. Like kind of the same stuff that I was saying to Colin when he let me go through to the program, and so then a couple months went by. I went down and it was a very challenging internship. They expected a lot out of us as interns, as they should, because we're training the top end NHL, some of the top end NHL players in the world, so they obviously expected a lot from us. It was a grind. We wake up at like 6 a.m. every morning, like go and get some stuff set up. We had to do some kind of like some shitty duties. But that came along with the job. Like you get to experience like help train McDavid and stuff like that, but you also have to like
clean up after.
You got to clean up after them and like make sure like their dressing room is set up well, and like there was all those kind of little duties and stuff we had to do. But there was like I don't want to like name drop, but
Yeah.
if you want me to. So we had like there was like McDavid, Scheifele, Stamkos, there was the Tanev brothers, Matthew Tkachuk, Mike Smith. I'm missing some names here. There was like Chris Tierney at the time.
Bunch of heavies.
Phil Kessel came through.
No way. What the fuck?
He came through only for the last month because he just won the Stanley Cup with the Penguins, so he was doing his Phil Kessel
Living his
thing.
life.
So when
Living
you
his
for a couple
life.
months,
when you first have these athletes come in, you know what I mean? Like as a young guy, like are you like starstruck? Are you like, okay, I'm ready for this? Are you like, okay, what? Like what are you thinking, bro?
So before we even met any of them, the head strength coaches said to us, they said like don't be fanboys.
Yeah, you
like,
can't. Yeah.
Like you can't do that, which that was never my plan. Like, you know, you don't want to be like that. Immediately kind of ruins the relationship if you go in and you're like,
oh my god, I can't believe it's
like,
you.
oh my god, you know what I mean? Like then they're immediately not going to respect you anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to hold some of it in. In terms of McDavid, I actually played against him like for a couple of years growing up because he was so good that he played 2 years up in the age group. So I actually played against McDavid a little bit. So it was cool to meet him, but at the same time I was like, I've already played against you.
I know,
Yeah.
kind of I knew you kind of thing.
Yeah, so like that was kind of like what that was. But Steven Stamkos was the guy that I was like the most, because like when I was like maybe like 13 or whatever, like he was like the star in the NHL, and like he was like, you know, unreal on the World Junior team, Team Canada. So like meeting him, I was like, okay, like sticking out my hand, like, you know, it's kind of shaking to like to shake his hand, but no, like it was good. And like after like the first like 2-3 days, like then I was like, okay, like I'm settled in now, like, you know, all that kind of like starstruckness is kind of like passed over. And then I was like, okay, like let's just try to learn and do the best that I can at this program. And like we were like very fortunate, like it was like, you know, the stuff that was offered to us there just as like interns, like there was a personal chef that was there that cooked meals for everybody, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and like we were included in that. So every morning, like we'd go, there'd be a chef there cooking for us, and like it was crazy, man. Like it was a real experience of like living like a true like top end like pro athlete. Like obviously I didn't do any of the training, but like in terms of coaching and like working with them in that sense, like it was
Probably opened your eyes and made things feel like a reality. Like, okay, like I'm actually doing this. Right?
Yeah, like it was like, okay, like I could actually like do like make something of this, and like knowing that was going to be on my resume was like very important. And like the biggest thing that I got out of it was just like the confidence to like train anybody, because it was like, okay, like I've already trained the top athletes, so it's like going to see anybody else, it was like, okay, well I've done this before. Like obviously I still get like nervous and stuff to train new people all the time, but like just knowing, okay, like I've already done that, so it's like I had the confidence to like pretty much do anything afterwards. That's kind of the biggest takeaway that I had from that.
What's the difference in training like a high caliber athlete like that and then let's say the average Joe, like program wise, or even to how much effort you have to, or even talking to them, right? Like going back to like that athlete trainer mindset, like how much more do you have to invest in that?
Honestly, like they're more similar than like to each other than you'd think. Like, because just because somebody is like doesn't have like elite level like athleticism doesn't mean that they don't train as hard in the gym as some other people. Like obviously on average a pro athlete will work out harder and be more involved than your average Joe, but like I mean the biggest difference is just like the care that they put into their body, because it's like they know that like their body is their job, is their life, so it's like they definitely put a little bit more intent into it. But like I've got some personal training clients that like, you know, they just work a 9-to-5 job, but like they come in, they grind, they want to like hit PRs, like they want to, you know, tailor their diet to like get better. So it's like you'd be surprised at the difference between some clients and pro athletes. However, on average, for sure, a pro athlete is going to be more dialed into everything and like want to, you know, get every advantage that he can over the opposition. But yeah, like and even like working there and training with those guys, like some of them are more into it than others though. Like McDavid, obviously, like he was like the ultra like focused like all the time. Like I've never trained a guy that's like more focused and like hardworking than him. Like he was like literally takes everything super seriously. You know, rarely goofs around. Like he's in there like focused the entire time while he's training. And he was actually a really nice guy too. He would McDavid would ask me, like, I was playing rugby down in Toronto, like, and he would ask me about my you know, how'd your game go on the weekend, like yada yada. And like some of the athletes there, like, you're an intern, they don't care about you quite as much, which I don't blame them, you know. You're not as important, like, whatever. But yeah, some of the guys there were like treat you differently than others, but he was one of the good guys for sure in terms of that.
Did you have any freaks? I really want to, like, any freaks who, like, they just train amazingly but have, like, the worst, like, diet or even to just, like, showing up. They just, like, they
joking
show up
around, probably.
Yeah, they just show up to do whatever they want, but, like, they actually perform, you know what I mean? Those freaks.
So that's, you do get those people, like, training, like, pro athletes. There are some of those guys that are just, like, natural and have managed to get to where they're at, like, on their, you know, their physique and like their natural abilities. There's definitely guys like that. You know, I don't want to like name.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to know, like, I guess.
But like a guy, one guy, and I'll just say this name because everybody knows him and his, you know, his antics. But like Phil Kessel is a guy. Yeah, man, like Phil Kessel is a guy that like he, you know, clearly doesn't take, you know, nutrition and like some training stuff as seriously as others. And to his credit, he was a Stanley Cup champion that summer that I trained him, and he came off of, you know, he was doing his celebrating and partying as you would if you won the Stanley Cup. And he came back in with like a month left in the summer. So like most guys were there for like 3 months training, like, you know, depending on when their season finished or if they went to the playoffs. And he came in, and I'm thinking, like, first of all, I warmed him up. He, like, that was one of my tasks one day, was to warm up Phil, and it was the most lackluster warm up.
Well, he didn't even want to be there.
He was chit chatting with McDavid the whole time. McDavid was dialed into his workout, and Phil was kind of just talking. But to his credit, though, he went in and he threw like 500 pounds on the bar and deadlifted it like 5 times after not training. Like,
crazy, bro.
Dude, it was like this guy came in. I was like, okay, this is why this guy is that good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but this is why this guy is that good. No, he didn't get hurt. No, dude, he came in and he threw it on the trap bar. He threw like 400, 500 pounds.
Damn.
And he just repped it out. And I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that's why this guy is
yeah.
an elite NHL player, because he can not be training and literally walk in and just do that.
Yeah,
That's
that's wild, bro.
That's sick.
I was gonna say that intern. How did that open the door for you for other things?
Yeah, so while I was there, my old strength coach that was training me while I was like playing AAA hockey growing up, he saw that like I got posted on like the Gary Roberts like Instagram or whatever, and he reached out to me and said, "Oh, like, are you like a strength coach now?" And I was like, "Oh, well, like, yeah." Like, I was like, "I'm an intern there," and I was like, "Also at Queens." And so he said, "Okay, well," he's like, "I have my own gym now back in Ottawa, obviously, which is where I'm from." And so he said, if you want a job, like reach out to me like whenever you're back home." So I was like, "All right, cool." So I shelved that. Went back, did my 4th year at Queens. I reached back out to Gary Roberts to see what was going on there and if they wanted to like take me on as a coach or whatnot. But they didn't have any like open positions. Like all like the like main strength coaches were already there. Yeah. And they're like, the only thing, like, you come back on as an intern. But I was like, okay, like I kind of want to like move on to like better things. Yeah. In terms of,
so like, were you getting paid as an intern, sir?
I was, yeah. Okay. We were getting paid like minimum wage or whatever. Yeah. So it was like, but that wasn't about the money there. It was like, that was just like a little bonus. The experience. It was about the experience. Like, I would have done it for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just that experience on your resume is like so huge.
And even to the networking, I think, was probably wild, right?
Exactly, right? So, I mean, case in point, like my current boss or the owner of the gym reached out to me and asked me because of that. So anyways, I reached back out to Gary Roberts and they said that they didn't have any open positions because they still had all their main strength coaches. So it was just like another intern position. So I decided, okay, well, I have this opportunity to go coach back in Ottawa and like go back to my hometown and like work there at a gym with like a guy that I know from before, and I know that he's a good guy. So I went back to Ottawa, and they brought me on just for the summer, and I helped like train the off-season hockey program, obviously using all the knowledge and stuff that I got from there. And they liked me well enough that I went back and did one more semester at school.
Yeah.
I kind of did like a half year in fifth year. And they said, okay, well, when you come back from your last semester, like, why don't you come back on full time? Like, you did, like, you know, we loved you over the summer. Like, you did super well. Like, we thought, like, you meshed well with us. So after my one semester, I came back. The first day that I walked back in was when that boxer walked in.
Oh, yeah.
I literally came in my first day back as, like, the full-time coach.
Here, this is what you get.
And I walked in, and there was this guy in the or I was going to meet Nick, who's like the owner, and just talk about like what I was going to be doing. And he was sitting there with this other guy who kind of had like, you know, a bunch of kind of like fancy clothes on. He had like Gucci jacket, like, you know, some nice like basketball shoes, like expensive outfit. And then there was like this kind of guy with like a shaved head and tattoos. I'm like, it's a weird combination of people. Like, who's in our lobby right now? I went in, and so Nick goes, oh, hey, like, this guy could actually take on you as a client. He's just starting back up. And so I'm like, oh, hey, like, what's up? Like, I'm Mason. And it was the manager / coach of all the boxers. That was the guy that was wearing, like, the nice.
Oh, yeah.
And so he said, hey, like, we just fired our old strength coach, looking for a new one. He's like, I looked you guys up on Google. You were close to us. That's how he found out about us. He's like, looked you guys up on Google. You're close, and you got good reviews. So he's like, we're just kind of like, you know, shopping around to see like if we can find a good strength coach. So I just chatted with him for a bit, and he said, hey, like, this is my guy Devin. He's one of my like, you know, newer like pros. He's like, if you do a good job with him, I got a bunch of other boxers that you can train. And like, you know, some higher level like athletes and higher level pro guys that you can take on if you do a good job with Devin. And then I took him on, and like I said, like he managed to win that fight. So I absorbed pretty much all of the pro clients off of that, off of him, and trained them for like 2 years. I still am kind of training them, but throughout COVID, he got frustrated with like all the lockdowns and stuff.
Of course.
Because he was just losing money, like at the gym, and
no
like
fights,
there's no
yeah,
fights
take us
in
through
Canada.
that time, bro. Like COVID in the business, because like it didn't make any sense that they were shutting down gyms, but like take us through that.
Dude, like,
Especially as a
I
trainer.
mean, we don't have to get it onto the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But like
topical, hit us
for
with the
sure.
topical
But just like obviously very frustrating that like gyms weren't seen as an essential like business, especially with like, you know, people's like physical and mental health. It's like these are such important things, and like closing down the gyms was just like almost a slap in the face to like everybody that was a strength coach and a trainer, or a gym owner. But yeah, it was a grind, man. It was a grind, like for those years, at least while we were closed down. When we were opened back up, we were actually doing fine. Like people were like hungry for the gym coming through. But the months that it was closed, it was like, you know, you're getting your CERB, which is like, at the time, like I had just bought that house. So like I had a lot of payments and stuff to hit. So like I felt like I was just trying to keep my head above water in terms of like money and financial stuff. But it was like doing like virtual workouts, like you got like the camera set up, and you're like, you know, you're doing the work. It's all right. Like we 30 seconds of high knees. Like kind of felt like you were like a 90s like. You know, one of those DVDs where they put it like the 90s like trainers in the tight outfits. That's kind of what it felt like, and I was like, "Okay, this is not what I signed up for. Like, the hell is this?"
Right? You almost try to do a new job, like after seeing it all, and you're like, "Fuck it, I don't want to do this no more." Like,
no, man, I honestly never thought that.
Really?
I was grinding. I was grinding it out. Like I was like, you know, behind closed doors doing personal training out of my basement with like some clients.
Bad man.
And
lock 'em up.
Yeah, breaking the rules. Just fucking locking up, dude. But was doing that, and then like I was selling people programs. So like say you were like at home and you had like, you know, you had a set of dumbbells and you had a exercise band and you had a med ball. Like those are your 3 pieces of equipment. Yeah. So I'd be like, all right, I'll make you a program that like works around the equipment that you have at your house.
That's dope.
And like that was how like I was getting through that, is selling programs to people to do at home, because nobody had anything to do. So
Yeah.
it's like they're at home, you know, they're after the first like month or two, they're like, okay, like I just feeling myself getting fat. Like the kind of early on cool part of the pandemic of just being able to stay home and play video games, watch TV is like kind of starting to like wear off a little bit. So yeah, I was just trying to keep my head above water by like selling programs to people to train at home, and like the virtual stuff was not actually to make any money personally. That was to keep our members happy and keep the gym, like the doors open, because like some people were nice enough to continue paying their memberships to like help us out. Like luckily it's a small business, like you're not in one of those big box gyms, like people know us personally, so they didn't want the gym to close down. And like we had some you know clients that we were fortunate enough to like they would continue paying their memberships, so to like to give them a service, we would do like online workouts. It would be like a 30-minute long, like I'm doing the workout with you while you're doing it, so we're doing it together, and I'm like counting out the reps and stuff. So that was a different experience, but it was worth it in the end, because like the gym doors stayed open, and then we almost gained more people throughout the pandemic because we were doing all that stuff to like stay relevant, and like we were posting all the time. So when we did reopen, like we actually had a huge like influx of business, which was great for us.
And can people still come up to you, like for example, to get a workout from you? Like do you sell workouts still? Or?
So like if there's one thing that I've learned to like be successful like in the world of strength and conditioning, is to like not like pigeonhole yourself into like one area. Like when I was first training, I was like, okay, like I only want to train athletes. Like that's what I did when I was at Queens. Like that's what I did with Gary Roberts. Like that's going to be my thing. But I learned like early on, like as a young strength coach, like you kind of have to take like whatever's given to you. So it's like, you know, if you get a 60-year-old mom that, you know, had just had like a knee surgery or something like that, like, yeah, that's outside of your usual realm of stuff that you've been training, but like you got to take that on, because the money pays the same as any other client. So it's like, you know, like if you want to like be successful and make money, you gotta get your hands in like all the other pots. So like you were saying, I do like, like if anybody came up to me, if Coco comes up to me, he's like, oh, I want a program, then I'm like, yep, I would, we'd set up like a FaceTime or a chat. We'd talk about your goals. We talk about where you're training. So like, you'd be like, okay, I'm working at a Good Life. I got a Good Life membership. I'll be like, okay, like how many days a week do you want to train? 2, 3, whatever. What are your goals? Okay, well, you want to get bigger upper body? Like,
he needs it.
All in, like we no, he's looking good over there. He's looking good, dude.
Wait, maybe I'll start working with Mason and watch. I'll leave you behind in the dust.
No, but like I'm so like when I sell the programs online, like I know some people that just have like the kind of like the general programs towards anybody that they kind of send off. Like I like to do it a little bit more
like
individualized and personalized program. Which takes me a little bit more time and will cost a little bit more money than somebody just buying like a $20 shitty program, you know, online. But all the people that I've done it with like have gotten results, so I know that it works. But yeah, like anybody that wants to buy a program off of me can buy one, and like I'm not partial. I want my general pop clients to do as well and like hit their goals just as much as I want my athletes to like, you know, hit their goals and make their team or do whatever. Like I approach them all the same.
Are there apps that you're using to like one, facilitate your athletes, and then 2, like provide these programs for them?
We do. So we at the gym we have one that we use like as the gym. It's called Conduct, and we have like it's an app that like, you know, you can buy a program. I input it on the back end, and then there's like the videos. So like say you have your exercises, you know, there's like, you know, your back squat or something like that. You'll click on it and like it'll show you like the cues. So it'll be like, okay, like, you know, stay tight through your core, brace, like pull your shoulders back, like don't fold in half, like stay upright. Like it has your cues and stuff to do. So people that are new with training, we kind of like push them towards that, because it's like, okay, like I'm not going to be there to coach you to make sure you're doing it safely. Like you should probably have some videos. If it's someone that's a little bit more experienced or that has like trained before, then because that's a little bit more of an expensive option, because you have to pay to be like, you know, like a user on the app,
like a member.
Yeah, so it's a little more expensive. So if you go off where you just go like a paper program, so it's just like I just make it on a PDF or like on Excel, and I just like send it off to you. And then like I'm pretty accessible because I don't have like millions of clients like some of the coaches.
Not yet.
Like yeah. So they'll be like, okay, like I'll be like, I know that you don't know this exercise, so I'll send a video of me doing it and explaining it. But for like the very generic exercises like push-ups, like I'm not gonna send like a video explaining how to do push-ups, like how to do push-ups.
How important has technology been with strength and conditioning?
It's been good. Like in terms of training itself, or in terms of like the economic
in terms
side?
of training itself. Like,
Okay, yeah. So so when I started at Capital, I had just come off using at Queens. We had this piece of equipment called GymAware that like tracks the velocity of your lifts. Mm-hmm. So that was a whole new
so
way
if
to
I'm laying
train.
down doing a bench press, you track how fast it's coming off.
Yeah, so like how many meters per second it's getting moved.
Yeah.
And so like we train people like frequently within a range. So it's like, yeah, so the one that at Queens would have like a little strap that was hooked onto a block, and it would just like how fast the cord was getting pulled would measure like the speed. But the ones that we use at Capital are hooked up via Bluetooth. And so like they have like an algorithm, that's way above my head, that measures how fast like the band is being moved on the bar or on your body. And when we're doing, for example, like I wouldn't use that training like your everyday person. Like they don't need to track the velocity of their lifts. Like it's not important.
Would that be for like a football player with like like burst where they want to
yeah, for sure. So when we're doing like explosive training or like power, like power training, we incorporate it then, and we actually do incorporate it as well sometimes with our strength work. But it's important for a couple reasons. It like gives you like a viable like range, like to be like, okay, I don't have to argue with my athletes. Say we're doing like a speed day, and I'm training like 16-year-old boys. They just want to lift heavy. Like that's all they want to do. It's 16-year-old boys, ego, like they're just trying to get huge, get lift heavier. But I'll be like, look, like we're trying to do speed squats today, and you have to hit a range of 0.8 meters per second to 1 meter per second. Like you're down here at 0.45, like you're way too slow. So it takes out that like that guessing of like, is it moving fast enough? Are we training the right, things that we want to train? So it takes that out of the question because you literally have it measured. And then on the other side of things, it like pushes athletes to have more intent, because it's like every rep, like if you do, say you're doing like a squat and you just kind of come down, you come up slowly, versus if you came down and exploded up from the bottom, like that intent on the rep is going to produce more results than if you were just going through the motions throughout a rep. So like every rep isn't the same. If you have more intent on one rep than another one, it can produce more results. So if you're measuring, say you have the push band on the bar, it's hooked up to an iPod and it has like the speed. So every rep that you do, it pops up the speed in front of your eyes. So if you have a shitty rep, you look up and you go like, dang, that was slow. Like I got to step it up. So it's like, say you're training a team of 20 athletes, you can't be over everybody's shoulder the whole time telling them to go faster, go harder. Yeah. It has an automatic feedback right away to kind of push these guys to go like a little bit harder. And like in some studies, like they've done studies on it, like people will do the same program, same like strength conditioning program with no velocity monitors, and they'll have the other people doing the same program, like same reps, same everything, same weights, with the velocity monitors. And because they have that extra intent of pushing harder on each rep, they produce more results in like power, speed, and strength. Yeah. So it's like those advances in technology have for sure like made an impact in training.
Like the numbers don't lie.
Yeah. The numbers don't lie. There's studies on it, and like that's the thing about strength and conditioning is like you have to stay on top of these like new methods, because it's only like it's as a science it's only been around for like I don't even know, like 20 years maybe. Like
how much research are you doing then, right? Like how much on top of it do you have to be to actually be like a great coach, right?
Yeah, you have to stay with it. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not like studying like stuff every single day, like but like if you hear about new concepts, like then it's like, okay, like I'm gonna look into this. Like I'm not like always like researching and doing stuff all the time, but if say for example when I first came over to Capital, that was just like starting. So I came over from like at Queens, we had like one of the tester schools, like we were just testing it. So when I went over to Capital, I said, hey, like we should get something like this. Like it was really effective. And me and Nick like looked into it together, and like we researched the best way to approach it and like how to implement it into the training. And that's kind of like what you do. So it's like if you hear about a new method, then like it's like, okay, like let's do our due diligence on this. Like you don't want to just see something on Instagram and be like, okay, like that must be real. Like obviously you gotta look into it, right, and research it and see if there's studies done on it. And then at that point you test it out. Usually we test it out on ourselves first. Okay, like how does this feel? Do we like this? Is this gonna work in a group setting? And then we implement it after that kind of thing.
I was gonna say, how important has physical activity been for you personally, like for your mental health and your physical health, and your overall like well-being? Like I know we had Bob Ross shoved down our throat, like exercise is so important. Everyone at Queens will know what I'm talking about, but like, how important has it been for you, bro?
Super important, man. Like, like you said, like physical and mental health, like those go hand in hand in my opinion. And like if I don't work out, I'm sure you do. You've been grinding away doing like
little challenge.
The challenge like every day, right? Was it like 20 minutes every day or something like that?
Some sort of physical activity.
Yeah, some sort of physical activity. Like, and you haven't missed a day, right?
No, not yet.
So like, I mean, imagine what you would feel like if you stopped working out for a week. Like, what do you think you'd feel
it's
like?
It's weird, man. Like,
you'd
it's just
feel
like,
weird. Like you feel like bad garbage.
Anxiety, probably, right?
You feel crappy about yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's like a physical, or it's like a mental outlet, right? So it's like if you have a bad day, like something doesn't go well, okay, well I can go put some angry music on in my ears and go like lift some weights, like, and that's like a good way to get the stress out of life, and and it gives me something to like work towards too. Like I'm still playing rugby right now, like in the summers.
That's sick, bro.
Yeah, and part of the reason why is like I still have the competitive itch to like play and do stuff, but at the same time like it gives me like a goal to train towards, because even as a strength coach, like we're not always like grinding in the gym. Like you know what I mean? Like you're in a gym 24/7, you're training people all day. You have 1 hour a break in between some of your clients, and you're like, sometimes, like not all the time, but sometimes you're like, do I really want to work out right now?
Probably not, right?
You know what I mean? You're like, and like you have to like gain them like motivation. Okay, like I'll start moving stuff, and maybe I'll get the motivation to work out. But like, like having the sport there on the side gives me something to train towards and still like kind of like push myself. So I like that. But without physical activity, like you just feel crappy, right?
Do you think you're more credible, especially to like your clients, that like you keep yourself in physical shape, you're playing a sport, you know what I mean? Like they kind of can reflect whatever you put on them is the same thing you interpret in your own life, and you're getting results, obviously.
Yeah, I do think that's important. Like me personally, to like have your athletes or your clients like see that you are doing that on yourself. Like, if you walked in to see a strength coach like that was out of shape, like you might question their methods a little bit, right? Or like
I remember sorry to interrupt you, but like a coach at Good Life in London, Ontario, outside with a cigarette smoking, bro, a personal trainer, and it was just like continue.
No, like, no. And what did you think when you saw that?
I was just like, bro, like what's this guy doing?
Would you want to be coached by that?
And he was there advocating like the health and this, and like he's like a little chubby smoking outside. It's just, it didn't make sense. You know what I mean?
And it's like one thing to like, like you don't have to be a hardo 24/7. Like you can't ever have a sip of alcohol. Like you have to eat everything clean all the time. Like that's also not a realistic lifestyle. Like you have to like let yourself have fun sometimes. But like, it's definitely important, I think, to like practice what you preach, right? Like that's a saying for a reason. And I do think that a lot of clients like appreciate that. Like I know if if you had like a financial advisor that was like going broke, like
why would I listen to you?
Like
right?
I'd be like, I'm gonna take advice from you. Like so I don't know.
No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. No, it's sick. And I was gonna say, I guess kind of just like to wrap it up here, do you have anything else you would like to say to like the people who are listening to us, or any piece of advice for someone who maybe wants to follow what you're doing, like a young guy out there wants to be a strength and conditioning coach?
So I think probably what I touched on earlier is like don't put yourself into like a niche area like too early. Like allow yourself to like test the waters everywhere. Like you might find yourself down an avenue that you didn't expect, and you might like it. And like I said earlier on, if you're trying to only do one thing, like it's going to be tough for you to like get where you want to be financially. So just like, even if it makes you uncomfortable, like take on all the opportunities that arise, whether it's like, say you want to only train athletes, but then you're training kids, like just like take that all in, and like you get your learning experiences from trying all these different things, and together collectively all those things will get you where you want to be financially. And at the same time, like if you make it, later down the road when you're more established and you want to then go down a niche path, that's probably the better way to do it, as opposed to trying to like only do your one thing and pigeonhole yourself early on.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of
David, do you have any questions here?
Yeah. Big Dave, jump in.
Yeah, I know David gets into it too.
You got a good one?
So just make sure Brandon audio is good on that one.
You guys
Perfect.
know this is Dave.
So yeah, Mason, I could probably sit here and pick your brain for another hour, but we'll narrow it down to a couple here. So 3 questions. One would be, so being a strength and conditioning coach, what's the biggest lift you've seen? Like biggest deadlift, bench,
biggest
squat?
lift. Wow. Okay. Well, we don't have like any crazy like power lifters, because most of the people that we train are like hockey players or like volleyball players. We actually have a lot of volleyball players at the gym.
Yeah.
I've seen I don't even know, man. I gotta think back. Honestly, some of the heaviest lifts would probably be like at Queens.
Really?
Watching some of like the football players lift, man. Like the football players are always the strongest guys. Like I think there's a saying, it's like you're part-time football player, part-time power lifter, or something like that. Because like the emphasis on like the weight room is like so big there. I don't know. We got a record wall at our gym. I think our squat is like, for our athletes, is like somewhere around like 400 and like 30 or 440 pound like back squat. I'm pretty sure for 3 reps.
That's huge.
Shit,
That's
man.
huge.
We got like a bench press at our gym that's like around, I think I want to say it's like 285 maybe, for maybe more than that, maybe closer to 300
It's got to be
pounds
more than that.
for 300 pounds for 3. That's what I'm saying,
But
man.
you guys do reps though, right?
It's for 3
right?
reps. For 3 reps. We don't do 1 rep maxes because the chance of injury is like really high when we're doing 1 rep max, so we kind of stay away from that.
I want to ask that. Have you seen an injury like in your like workplace?
Luckily nothing extremely serious. The only weird injuries that we've seen, honestly, is like a barbell like somehow like falling off and like hitting somebody's head, and they kind of like concussed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But like your job as a strength coach is like, if there's like an injury that happens in the gym, it's
on
like
you.
you probably weren't doing something. Obviously things happen, like if you're training 20 people at once, you can't have eyes all over the place, but like you should be aware. I know that's a hard question. Yeah, we don't have any like crazy heavy lifters at the gym. Like we definitely have some people that have deadlifted like around 500 pounds or whatnot, but like we don't have any like crazy lifters at Capital, at least anyways. But
So then the next one is, with the experience, especially at the Gary Roberts program there, did you ever have an athlete just be like, fuck off, I'm not going to deal with you? Like, give me one of the actual guys. Like, I'm not dealing with an intern.
No, we didn't actually have that there. But I'm sure that it's happened before with some coaches, but luckily nobody was like that. I mean, maybe there's some people that they just wouldn't come to me for help and they would just go to somebody else. Like, for example, like when we were there, like Stamkos, he's been there for the longest. Like that was like Gary Roberts' like first client. So like he would never like come to us, but it wasn't because he was being like a dick or anything. It was just because he had already established trust with another strength coach. But no, I didn't have any of those guys like outright like be like an asshole to me or anything like that.
no belittling in the environment. Like they were all very open to like
Yeah.
we're dealing with professionals.
They were,
your
and like, you know what I mean. Like, I like to think a little bit maybe it was just because of the way I approached some stuff, but no, those guys were all like they were good guys. Like nobody like belittled us. None of the athletes belittled us while we were there. No.
Cool. And then last one is we're doubling down on Phil the Thrill again there. So chef in house, everything. Like, was he actually eating meal plans with you guys, or like is his diet that bad? Like,
So-
you ever see him with a hot dog or anything?
So that summer was actually the summer of the hot dog and the Stanley Cup. You guys remember that?
Yes, I do.
You remember that one? So that was that summer, and Gary is a guy that really preaches like health and like total wellness of the body. So it's fair to say that like when he came back, like Gary was a little bit pissed off about what he had seen because everyone that's there's like sometimes people are like media and people are taking pictures and stuff like that, and he definitely had a few choice words with Phil about his eating habits in the off season, but he was a little pissed off about that.
Nice.
That's
Perfect. Then, yeah, we could wrap it up there.
I guess you can wrap it up there. And thank you guys for watching the full episode. If you guys made it this far, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and give Mason a follow. We'll have all his Instagram, all his information. And if you want a gym program, you know the guy to go to, right?
Come to Ottawa. He's got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Peace, guys.
Peace,
Take care.
guys.